I'm Leanne Harris, CEO for Keller Williams Portland Central, and today I'm getting to know your realtor. We have Crystal Hughes. Hi, Crystal. How are you today?
Hi, Leanne. Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
We were talking offline that we both have our Yetis today. You have yours from United Home Group, and I actually have mine from Cody Gibson, the Experience Series. And we've talked about this on a couple past podcasts, but you're part of the United Home Group expansion group that Cody runs across the country, and you're in my region, and you've now recently become an area director for us. And of course, your clients know you just as Crystal, their realtor. And so today I'm getting to know your realtor. We're going to dive down into how you service your clients, how you've become such a leader, how you and I have stayed in each other's worlds for as long as we have, and we continue to okay, what's next? What are we going to build? So let's get started with, how did you get started? Tell us your journey in real estate.
Yeah. So I was originally bartending and waiting tables and was going to school to be a CNA. So I thought I was going to be a nurse. And
wait, too much blood, or what's the deal?
it's gross. It's a little bit gross. And it takes a very special person to do that all the time.
Totally.
I think I like business better. So I decided to go to school for business. And in the process, I met someone who had a full-time real estate business and was slammed and said, I think you would be amazing at real estate. And so I became her assistant full-time, and I got to learn from the ground up.
Yeah.
Development, how to buy land, how to do from the dirt basically to interior of new construction and pricing the homes for the future. So that was in 2012. And oh my gosh,
the very best time to be getting into real estate. It was still very uncertain in 2012. We had gone through the crash, if you will. I mean, I was over Untitled during that time, but by 2012, I was back in the brokerage side of things. And it was crazy. It was still are we going? Are we going? Are we going? So.
Right. And where are we going? Right. And it was coming out of it, past 2010, and going in 2013, I officially got licensed. So almost a decade. And
I love it.
Yeah.
Rockstar.
Yeah. So my first 6 months, I sold 18 homes and became Rookie of the Year in 2014. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then I did event planning from 2014 to 2017. So I got to kind of know the community more and help plan the fun events and kind of do the fun side of things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work in that, right? And I really wanted to also better service my clients at that point too. Mm-hmm. So I stepped kind of away from working on the board with the association and really focused on honing in on my business, and was averaging every year about $8 to $10 million in sales.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And so, and I know that you are just rocking out sales this last year. I mean, you're pulling in 4 transactions at least a month right now. And so you're able to do that in a pandemic. And I certainly I want this podcast to be, people to be able to listen to it for years in the future of getting to know my realtor. And at the same time, this is our environment of the moment, is the pandemic. And I've seen a lot of people get very paralyzed by the market. They're afraid. And yet here you are, where you've absolutely excelled through this last year in 2020. You've done better than I've seen, in the last couple of years. And all of a sudden it's just Crystal's crushing it, man. You do a lot of other things too. And we can still talk about your journey in real estate, but you have hosted, if I'm right, a comedy series, comedy nights. Hosted, right?
Correct. So I was producing them. So I would actually book the shows. I was the producer and the host. So we did, between 2019 and 2020, I hosted 32 every Tuesday night comedy shows.
Wow.
Just booking comics in the Northwest. I was also I'm a certified yoga instructor. But to your point about the success of the last year,
yeah,
I think for a lot of us, COVID really required us to kind of focus in on ourselves. And a lot of the noise was silenced. I couldn't go to the comedy shows. I couldn't go teach yoga.
Right.
And I really had to look at where I was at personally and my business. And it's amazing when you really focus.
Yeah.
And you have the right people around you, like yourself and other people who have that same type of mindset, how much you can really achieve when you're focused.
Totally. I love that you just said like the noise got shut down and we got extremely laser focused this year because I know seem in the brokerage and in our region we've actually grown, and I think that it is because I wasn't able to travel. I couldn't go teach Airbnb classes. I'd probably be on the road, visiting you and saying, let's go over and I don't know, rent boats or whatever we've done it, whatever I've liked to do in the past. And we weren't able to do that. So yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the three nuggets that you want to leave people with. Is it clients? Is it other real estate agents? But tell us what your three nuggets of wisdom are.
Sure. Well, the first one I want to start out with was something that my grandfather taught me. His name was William Hughes, and we called him Bill. And he was an airplane pilot, and he flew in the Air Force. And he would always tell me to remember my 6 P's for everything in life. He would say, you got to be prepared for good things to happen. And your 6 P's are this: preparation prevents poor performance, right? And I think that that goes with a lot of things in life for yourself, for your business. He would always show up 30 minutes early. That's kind of an old person thing, with all due respect, right? No, but he would always show up dressed, clean shaved. And he would say, be ready to ask all the good questions. Don't be afraid to ask good questions. So when I was young, he got me early into acting. And he would say to me before I'd perform and really ask me about my character, he'd say, anybody can memorize anything, but to truly understand a concept or the character on a deep level is a whole nother level. So I think that's really important in life, that if we have goals, anything that we want to do, to be best prepared for those things. And one of the things that we can best prepare to do as realtors is to be armored with knowledge, right? So in order for us to be professionals in our field, we have to be experts. And we have to, in order to best help our clients, like, we got to know where we're going, right? Gary Keller, The Shift book, really being armored with knowledge and knowing what's most important for our clients today. Also, our environment. I think that really matters, right? To be best prepared. Does the level of the company that we keep, the office that we work in, our home, does it really support the level of the business and the lifestyle that we want?
Yeah.
Well, how we show up, right? Like, how we show up is so important in being prepared. Did I eat 12 pieces of pizza the night before? Because you know what? I might feel like crap the next day.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? Like, I have a problem with donuts. Like, I have to stay away. Like, I eat 2 every time. Like, I can't eat one.
I have a problem with croissants. That's my gig. I'm like, no on the croissants. Like, and then I just went and bought 2. Like, I'm like, okay, 2 for the week.
Right. And having people surround you who are not going to sit down and eat that donut with you, right? They're going to be like, well, you want to eat that donut? Great. You're going to gain the inches. Right. And then number 3 to be prepared is scheduling, living by your calendar. I mean, you have helped me with this so much. And I think some of the most successful people that I've learned, they live by their calendar. They do what their calendar says and they plan for that. You have to plan for success.
Yeah.
And right. And if something comes out of your calendar, you have to replace. One of the second things, I think my second golden nugget would be is knowledge, is technology and information. Again, like that noise. What are we listening to? Who are we listening to? What are we reading? I mean, people get paid to have people watch them play video games, right? So like, what are we?
And follows these people and he watches people play video games. I'm like, why don't you just go play the video game? He's like, well, I got to see what they're doing. I'm like, what? But what they're doing is not listening to their own voice. They're putting another person that knows how to do it and they're watching them, which I'm like, this 9-year-old's kind of brilliant, actually.
Yes. So you watch other people do what they do. And, again, Gary Keller says, if I've seen farther, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
So what are we doing? What books are we reading? Who are we having high level conversations with, right? Like, even if in our life we're grieving, are we studying about how to grieve? Or if we want to buy more investment properties, how are we doing that, right? And today they say the statistic for average screen time is 6 to 9+ hours a day for teenagers. So what is it that we're doing? If we took one of those hours away and we listened to an audiobook, if an average book is about 200+ pages, 6 to 8 hours. If we did that each day, we could read a book a week, right? So what are we really doing to fill ourselves with knowledge? What books and what questions are we asking? So, what would I tell my younger self? to read more books, to ask better questions, and to invest in more real estate.
Yeah.
To really understand, like you said, to really understand how money works, like the psychology of money and how it flows.
Mm-hmm.
And to not come from a lacking mindset, but to come from a abundant mindset. And my third nugget is adopting a winning mindset. So I've done a lot of research on mindset and the psychology of winning, and you
Yeah.
and I have talked about winning,
Yeah.
right? And I think what I've learned most is, and the common denominator is, if we really want something bad enough, we're going to do whatever it takes. However, when we want something, we often can also, from human nature, come from a place of lack, right? And so when we take where we're at and where we want to be, often that gap to really kind of achieving those goals is really knowing who we need to become,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so knowing what our strengths and our weaknesses are. And so we got to lean into them. Sheryl Sandberg, the previous COO for Facebook, she wrote a book, Lean In. Like, we're going to fail. We're going to fall on our face. So we just got to get back up, because we all get stuck. And so what's going to keep and be most important is adopting that winning mindset and those positive affirmations.
Well, I
And
think too,
feel down.
what's your reality? And my reality is, well, I already have it. Whatever it is that I want, So I think that that's the other piece that you and I have talked about so many times, is like, a winning mindset is also about, have you already envisioned yourself past the finish line? Let's talk about athletes, right? I've interviewed quite a few athletes as well, and in quite a few years ago, but one of the things that they talk about is that visualization, that they've already seen themselves across the finish line, at what time, before who, like they really visualized it. And I think that is the struggle that I have with people when I'm leading and coaching them. I'm like, well, tell me all the details about it. They're like, oh, I don't know, I haven't been there yet. And I'm like, but you have. Tell me in your brain what it looks like.
Yeah.
What's the details? What does the doorknobs look like in that visual that you have in your mind? I don't care what the details are, but I want to know, what are you visualizing? And I think that that's what you and I do, is we really visualize ourselves coming across the line.
Correct. That's the secret sauce to getting there, right? Is believing it already ahead of time and knowing. And I think that that's what ultimately gets us out of bed when we do feel down, or that everything's maybe hit the fan, is knowing and getting back up, because life does show up, right? We know that it does show up. So how do we maintain and still reach our goal without changing it? And we just adapt, right? Like NFL, we shift and we pivot, and we have our game and our strategy. And I always appreciate that sometimes when I don't feel at my best, or when I don't believe in myself, it takes sometimes people really looking at you and saying, don't use that as an excuse. Get up, let's go. We're winners.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you've done a good job of surrounding yourself with people that want what you want as well. And so that's exactly why you find that your other person that'll kind of push you up a little bit and get you to that next level. I love that part. Any other nuggets?
Ooh, yeah. Well, just being on the relentless pursuit of being the best version of yourself. I think that that's the one thing that I would say, is always being on the relentless pursuit of being the best version of yourself. Because I think that many times when I haven't won, or I've learned some really hard lessons, not failures, right? They're lessons, is when I stood in my own way. And so when I get out of my own way and I get in the way of good things to happen, and I'm on that relentless pursuit, and I give myself some grace, because we can all tend to live in our book of regrets, right? And so what would
Did you read that book?
Yes, I'm reading it. I'm almost done. I love it. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
So wait, yeah, tell the listeners, because I think that it's always fun to give listeners something to go listen to, but it's called
The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
So good.
And the space in between life and death is this midnight library. And we all have the opportunity to kind of write our own book, and we tend to live in this book of regrets. And so I think if we're gracious on ourselves, we get up every single day and we look back and we compete with who we are yesterday, we'll become that better version. But back to the book, it's really about this young lady who is about 35, and she's got a cat, and she's really doesn't want to live anymore, but she's finding the purpose to live. But I'm only about halfway through, but there's really some profound nuggets in there so far.
It's a good book for, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell that book with all the donations going to Lifeline for Hope,
Love
and
it.
maybe do something around that. But it really is about not, first of all, I think that we tend to live looking at other people and saying, oh my gosh, but they have this and they have that, and I should have this life, and I really wanted this. And it's like, I don't know if you did. Like, the choices that you've made have got you here. And what do you do? Like you were saying, like, you compete with yourself yesterday. And I think you owning where you are right in this moment, you and I have talked about this before, of looking in our shadows, and we just don't anymore. You and I are very good about the second that we want to turn around and be like, but I did that. We're like, wait, where am I going again? And we kind of get back on track. And we've had those conversations, and it's true. It's like, we do tend to live in that book of regrets, or that book of the past, or whatever. And we've got to continue moving forward. I also think that you said something very profound that I want the listeners to hear. And that was that you said the relentless pursuit of improvement for yourself. Is that how you said it?
Becoming the best version of you. Be on the relentless pursuit of becoming the best version of you.
I think that people hear that and they're like, I don't want to show up at 100% every day. You know, I've heard that a lot, where they're like, you expect 100%, Leanne, and I don't want to show up at 100%. I'm like, no, relentless pursuit of becoming the best version means that maybe what is important to you is not leaving your children with a burden of a mound of debt when you pass away. And so maybe today the relentless pursuit is just understanding what a trust would look like. Or maybe your today is about lead generation because you really want to pay off that debt so that you don't leave your kids with that, or whatever it is. I don't know. But I think that people look at it and they're like, you want me to grind, you want me to be perfect, you want me to have this perfect body, and da-da-da. And I'm like, definitely. Like, of course I don't show up like that, but I think that they think the world wants that. And that's not really what it is. It's, what do you want?
Yes. And what does that do to you?
Yes.
Right? And how does that ignite your fire?
Yeah. What's your book? Tell us your book. Yes.
Okay. So my book would be on the art of winning and knowing thyself.
Ah, I love it.
So I think there's a direct correlation between really truly knowing yourself at a deep level.
Yeah.
And then you can win at life, at anything. And it goes back to being on that relentless pursuit of, competing with yourself every single day to be better. Shaun White, right, is a Olympic gold medalist and snowboarder. And what I think is really impressive about him is he doesn't even like the cold. He hates the cold. He's a professional snowboarder. And he was going to be one of the youngest Olympians in history, but he was beat. Okay, he lost. What he did in turn was, instead of create resentment and anger and feel this loss, he hired the guy who beat him, and then he won in the next Olympics.
It's always somebody that fires us up. It's like somebody has to come and take our title and we're like, nope.
Wait. Yeah, I didn't make it in the top producer club this month, right? So, but he hired his weakness, right? And he leaned in to learn how. And so I think that really truly knowing yourself matters. When I was in high school, I tried out for cheerleading, and I had this mindset. And when I went into it, I was like, I'm not going to make cheerleading. I'm not as pretty as these other girls. I'm not as rich as these other girls. I grew up in a trailer park. I don't have enough money as these other girls. I'm not going to win. And I kid you not, like, I kicked so hard during the kick part, and I flew backwards. I fell straight on my back. So embarrassing. And then that summer, I didn't make cheerleading. Okay. And it was how I showed up in my mind.
Okay. I didn't make cheerleading.
Like I could smell the pavement. Okay. I could smell the concrete. It was fabulous. And that summer, I surrounded myself with girls who were on dance team that were really good dancers. And I learned from them how to dance. And then I practiced and practiced and practiced. And I got this little fire inside of me. And they said, there's tryouts for captain before you even really, like, you make the team and you can become a captain. And I thought, if I learn and learn and learn, I can turn around and I can teach other people how to dance. And I'd never had professional dance lessons, but I'm like, I'm going to learn. So I did everything, asked questions, surrounded myself with girls, read books, watched videos, and I made captain of dance team. But it's because I believed in myself at that point in time. And that there was a paradigm shift in my life where I learned that I won because I wanted to and because I believed that I could. And then I also learned that the highest level of learning is through teaching
We
too.
have a special guest on our podcast today.
Hi!
It's Cody Gibb.
He had COVID for 2 days.
Hi,
We've been talking about you because we had our experience series and our UHG cups from the very beginning.
We match. Look at all of us matching.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
We're wearing our matching
It's all
outfits.
just black. Crystal, I'm so proud of you and what you do. You continue to work so hard.
Thank you.
You're a rock star. Yeah, we're doing our little podcast and putting it out. And so we had our special guest of Cody on the
I walked in and your
podcast.
staff was like, shh, she's on a podcast. And I'm like, shh, I'm
It's
going in
studio.
there.
I'm going to interrupt it. I love it.
I
Gosh,
love it.
all right.
I was like,
You
I
guys,
had to
finish. I'll come back.
All right, sounds good.
Bye, Crystal.
Bye.
Isn't that good? We got to have, I was like, oh, I think he's going to come in today. We might have a special guest on the podcast. Yes, we don't ever get to see the famous Cody Gibson very often, so it's kind of fun.
Celebrity.
I know, totally. All right. Did you have anything else that you want to leave your listeners with? And of course, like even your clients or anything else?
Yeah, I think that, again, it really just comes down to, this might sound a little bit repetitive, but really knowing what our big why is. What is it that we want for our future? What legacy do we want to leave behind? Why would we want to invest and buy real estate? And who's that person that we want to become, and who's going to help us get there? So, coming from a grateful mindset, a winning mindset, and always staying humble and hungry.
Yes.
Being in pursuit of yourself. So I think that's what I would leave everybody with. And then I get to ask you a question though, right?
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. I never know what the question is, but I love it when people have their questions. So yes.
Yeah. So the question for you is, over the years when I first met you, I think 5-6 years ago or so, you were in a room and you were like, okay, hold on. I need some clarity on this. You're like, I really need clarity. I think that that's really powerful, is you're able to speak up in a large room of people and even kind of challenge in a way and ask a very serious question to, who's Steve Chater, who's written books and, one of the top people in the company. And so I look at you and I'm like, influencer, boss lady, powerful. So, right. So, but I also step back and I'm like,
a lot of times we don't see ourselves the same way that somebody else does. There's a really good movie out right now. Hold on, I have to think of it, but Kate, finish what you're
yeah, it's true. Kristen Barber, she posted something on IG the other day and it was about a lizard, and they have these beautiful things underneath their throat and they never get to see it, but it's absolutely beautiful. And so I think that's true. Sometimes we don't see ourselves as other people do. We have these beautiful talents on the inside that other people can see. So knowing thyself, right? So the question for you then is, there's a couple layers to this. So how do you continue to grow and kick ass in a male-dominated industry? One, okay. And what was the moment in your career when you realized you were on the right path? And then since we were talking about noise, how do you silence the noise?
Well, you know what? This is going to be a good one. This is going to be really good for people to hear. So I got fired from a job, and it was probably one of the most devastating things that happened to me ever in my life. And I was fired because I spoke up. And
I've never been fired.
it's really devastating. You're like, what? And so what really bothered me about this company, though, was that they terminated me for saying what really needed to be said. And maybe not. I mean, maybe their job was to sweep everything under the carpet, and I don't really know, and I don't really care. I don't have any ill feelings towards it. It was just, we separated ways. And I think in that moment, I realized that, maybe not, probably took 6 months, because I really did have a pity party for a long time after that. But I realized that I'm not going to silence my voice, and that is the way that the world is kind of built, is that you're a good girl if you're quiet. And there's a great book called Cassandra Speaks, and I've talked about that on the podcast too, but you're a good girl if you're quiet. And I was like, I don't really care. I don't really care if I'm a good girl or not. I don't want to be anymore. What I want to be is do the right thing. I want to do right by humans. I want humans to grow. I want to I want to make sure that when there's a bully in the workplace, that I don't have to sit back and take their conversations during the day that are not productive. I want to be able to speak up and say, I don't think that our company is going to run at the highest level when you talk to us like that, or you demand that from us. Like, let's do collaboration. So fast forward, got into KWO, and I'll tell you, one of the things that Cody Gibson says to me constantly is he always says, don't let people steal your superpower. And your superpower is annoying to some people. It is annoying. It is like, I get it. I'm very outspoken. I wear every truth on my sleeve. And when I don't know the truth or I question it, then I go and I find coach. I have a coach for everything. I have a financial coach. I have a business coach. I have a counselor that I can talk to about, maybe if whatever your personal stuff is in your life. But I literally will get a counselor, and I also read so many books. And one of the things, Crystal, that you're amazing at doing, and I know you do this with your clients too, is you always say, what question didn't I ask you today? And it honestly makes me think, I'm like, well, what else was I supposed to tell her, right? But it'll be things like, you wouldn't think that the Midnight Library was a business book. You probably wouldn't think that, right? And even when you read it, you're thinking, oh, this is very much about my personal life. But all of it is the same. Your personal and your business life are exactly the same. And what it really is it's a development book about how to view things so that you don't get stuck in a rut. And it's just putting a different person's voice in your head. And so how I stay going is, the reason why I'll speak up in a room of people is because I don't have any fear. You can fire me again. I'm only going to light the world on fire again. And now I can't, I can't be fired because I own my own companies, but like, you know what I mean? Like I don't care, because I know that asking the question will serve 90% of the room when I ask the question. And most of the time it's annoying to the speaker and it's annoying to the person that might've put on the thing, right? Whatever program it was. But afterwards, I'll have so many people that reach out to me that are like, thank you. I was wondering the same thing, but I didn't want to speak up. Right. And so maybe I'm just a voice for people that I feel like wouldn't say it. That's really what it really boils down to. I'm a very fair and equitable person too, and I believe in that line. Like if it's going over our head, we've got to get fair on it, because I need to know what's going on. Yeah.
That's inspiring.
Oh, well, thanks. You've inspired me on so many different things, and I'm going to ask you publicly on the podcast. I would like you this summer to come and do yoga on my deck, my new deck from my house. And I'm thinking that we could do like a little yoga weekend retreat with some girls at my house. I think that would be really fun.
Deal. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you are such an amazing real estate agent. You do such a great job for your clients, Crystal. You are such a powerhouse, and I've really watched you continue to grow and be this great leader in your community and even nationwide. And people know your name, and people should feel really lucky in Wenatchee to list their houses with you. So thank you for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everything, who you've been in my life in all these years, and all your coaching and great advice, and for holding me to it.
Thanks for joining us today on Getting to Know Your Realtor. This episode was brought to you by Lifeline for Hope. Be sure to catch us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much again for joining us today. Have a great day.